didn't know what I was doing. I was just relying on my wits and hoping for a positive outcome.
Every change has a reason. Baby, let it come to you.
Hey guys, it is Casey with Accidental Homeschoolers. It has been about a week since my last video. My parents were in town, so I really wanted to spend time with them and really enjoy Easter this year. So what I want to talk about today are the realities of homeschooling, the pros and cons. Some of you have been homeschooling for a long time, or maybe a year or two, and some of you may be thinking about homeschooling for next year. So I wanted to talk about a few things to kind of help you a little bit. When I first started homeschooling, I didn't have any help. I didn't know anyone really. I had a friend that was homeschooled as a child who kind of gave me a little guidance, but I was basically relying on what I knew as a former teacher and what I could possibly do with that. I did a little research and kind of just jumped in with 2 feet. There really wasn't a lot on the internet then, and there really wasn't anybody on YouTube who was talking about their experiences and trying to help with a little guidance. Basically, I just took what I knew and I ran with it. I wanted to do this video in hopes that it would help someone, that maybe it might help you think about a few things, or maybe affirm some things you were already thinking. So what are the realities of homeschooling? What are the pros? What are the cons? I'm gonna start with the cons. Con number 1, self-doubt. I experienced a lot of self-doubt. I felt like I knew what I was doing, but then I really didn't know. I didn't have anything to gauge it against. And I was constantly thinking that I wasn't doing enough, or was I using the right curriculum? Was this going to help him achieve, our learning goals and the outcomes that we wanted? I didn't really know. I was constantly second guessing myself. And with that brings on a lot of guilt. I mean, as a mother, you already experience a lot of guilt, like a lot of guilt. If you're a mom, you feel guilty about everything. So it brought on a lot of guilt of, am I doing the right thing? Am I depriving him of stuff? And as we finish up our 4th year, no, looking back, I wasn't depriving him of anything. I was giving him more than other kids were getting. And, maybe he wasn't socialized enough, but he's doing just fine. He'll talk to anybody. He'll communicate with anyone. He does great in social situations. Just because he's not sitting in a classroom doesn't mean that he's unsocialized. Con number 2. I told my husband as we got started, I said, I am probably going to experience the most mental, emotional, and spiritual growth of my entire life, because I knew what I was about to jump into was going to create a lot of difficulty, a lot of hardship, a lot of having to stretch beyond what I was comfortable with. I did some training years ago, and the trainer always talked about, you kind of have this bubble, you're like a balloon, and you get to a point where you stretch, and you get to that point where you just kind of feel uncomfortable and you just don't want to go any farther. But if you push a little bit past that, you could achieve so much personal growth. And so I kept reminding myself of that, like, okay, it'll be all right. When I get to the other side of this mountain, I'm going to be an even better person. I'm going to be closer to God. I'm going to be stronger mentally. And honestly, that time period probably lasted about a year and a half for me. It may not for other people. During this time period, I felt very overwhelmed because before I was going to work and I had time to myself. I was getting accolades outside the home. So when I'd come home, I felt like fully recharged, and I was never alone. ever. I was always home. My child at the time was always with me. And for an introvert who needs to have some time alone to decompress, that was extremely difficult. I experienced a lot of, I guess this would be con number 3, I experienced a lot of stress and anxiety. And honestly, looking back, it was needless stress and anxiety. I didn't need to put myself through that because what I was doing was enough. One thing that I want you guys to take from this is that you are your child's first teacher. You teach them how to crawl, how to walk, how to do many things. You are talking to them. You're teaching them their first words. What makes you think you can't teach them how to read? It's just silly. You can. And that was what I was doubting. I had already taught many children how to read, but I was, stressed about teaching my own kid, which was just kind of dumb if you think about it in the long run. Because I was never alone, I had to implement quiet time. He was no longer napping, of course. So it was, you go in your room and you play quietly. I'm going to go in my room. I'm going to shut the door for 30 minutes. Sometimes I set a timer to help him understand, but I needed to be alone because for my own mental well-being, I had to have that. And for the first year, I didn't do it. And that was the dumbest thing I could have done. But honestly, I just didn't stop and think about it because I was thinking about so many things at the time. So please, do not give yourself needless stress and anxiety. It will be okay. It works itself out eventually. It takes some time because you have to figure out, what does your family need? What does your child need? What works for you? What do you want to teach? Right now there's so many videos about curriculum. I'm sure it's overwhelming people. But I did one because I wanted to help, give people maybe some ideas. This is what I'm using. I love to see what other people are using, but I see it differently now. If I had seen this if I had seen those videos when I first started, I think my brain would have just exploded. So if you're one of those people, it's okay because you may try a curriculum and it may not work well, and that's okay. Pick another one and move on. Trial and error, that's kind of how we learn in life. I think that that's okay. All right, con number 4. We went down to one income. We had to figure out how to live on one income. Did we do it? Of course. When you're used to having this much money and then you go down to this much, can you make that work? First of all, crunch your budget and make sure that, financially you actually can. Or can you make adjustments so that you can do it? I think that that is important. Honestly, think about it. The more money you have, the more money you spend. The less money you have, the more you think about what you're spending your money on. It's not just disposable income that you're like, oh, well, it's like this cushion you don't even think about. But the more you have, the more you'll spend. So if you have less money, you're actually going to be a better steward of the money that God has given you. So it's a con, but it kind of turned out to be a positive. All right, now for the pros. Pro number 1, spending more time with your kids or kid. Some of you are teaching only one child as well. Think about what you could do with spending more time with your kids. It's funny. People will tell me all the time when they hear that, we homeschool, they're like, I don't know how you do it. And I'm like, I don't know how you do it. You only spend a couple hours really with your kid a day. Like, how do you know your kid? And, I kind of feel like, who's influencing your child? Is it you and your husband or your family? Or is it a stranger? The more that I think about it now, the farther into it we've gotten. I'm just so grateful that I get to be such a huge part of their lives. Pro number 2, having control of what your kids are exposed to. In this day and age, it's a little scary. There's a lot of stuff that you're hearing on the news about, what certain states are throwing into curriculums and, oh my goodness. I mean, I feel for some of these teachers that, may be forced to do something that might be against what they feel is okay. And that has to do with, I could really get into it, but to be polite, I think you know what I'm talking about. Pro number 3, flexibility for your family. So with my husband's job, he actually gets some decent time off, and sometimes it's on short notice. Well, we homeschool. We can do what we want. I can rearrange the schedule any way I need to. I can extend weeks, I can shorten weeks, and it also gives us more flexibility to travel. One thing I forgot to add to the cons is that, there are a lot of people that may give you a lot of flack for homeschooling your child. I mean, I had a lot of people, even family, who were not okay. But now they are, because they have more access to their grandkids, and they're able to spend more time with them on a more flexible schedule, and not just, oh, Christmas break, oh, spring break, oh, summer vacation. It's when it suits best for everyone. So that's been really nice. Pro number 4, I've been able to provide meaningful experiences for my children. Not just family vacations, but things like putting a bird feeder in the yard and spending time observing birds and learning to identify them. I mean, when would we have had that much time to do that if they were in public school? Probably not. We're able to do nature study days. We're able to spend as much time as possible outside. Honestly, I think that's what's wrong with a lot of people today. They're so unhappy because they're not able to go outside. They're not able to get natural vitamin D. The sun makes you happy. Being outside makes you happy. I mean, not everyone wants to sweat or freeze to death, but being outside and seeing something beautiful, it just adds to your happiness. So we are able to do things like that, which has been really nice. There are probably many more things you could add to this list, and I'm sure lots of you could comment below and tell me some more things. What are some cons that have happened in your homeschool? What are some pros? Some things that I haven't thought about. I would love to hear about it, because the more we add to the comments, the more it's adding to the conversation. So if someone is new, they're getting as much information as possible. So please comment. Thank you so much for watching my video today. If you could, please like and subscribe. It really does help out my channel. And I hope that you have a wonderful day. Bye. I'm just sitting in here filming my YouTube video while I listen to my baby cry downstairs with my husband. I'm just enjoying my time in here, my quiet time talking to you guys. This is actually great.
Every change